What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over how to close 40% of your cold traffic leads. And the reason why I'm excited to make this is because if everything you've learned about sales hasn't led you to the point where you can consistently close people from cold traffic, maybe it doesn't work for cold traffic, which sucks. It's a big problem. But the reason why I know that this works is because I've personally taken thousands of sales calls myself, built killer processes, and consistently hit 40 to 50% plus close rates on cold traffic. And I've scaled teams to do the exact same thing. So I know it works for other people, not just me. I know it's transferable. And if you're wondering who the hell I am, you're new to the channel. I'm Dan Crowley. I'm one of the co-founders at Ascension and ListKit, where I currently lead those teams to do over $1 million per month combined. So today, like I said, it's gonna be a step-by-step guide, but honestly more of a crash course because there's so much in here and I could make an individual video on each and every one of these sections. But if you're new here, once again, want to just get you to a point where you can close 40% of your cold traffic leads, and this is going to be an excellent starting point. So let's dive in. Point one, it all starts with your mindset. Sales is very much a mental game just as much as it is a tactical or procedural game. So if you want to consistently and ethically close cold traffic, you're going to need the right mindset. And the way that I go about it is I call it the service-driven mindset. And it's the foundation of basically everything that I teach, because you don't know these cold traffic leads. They don't know you. They don't trust you yet. And if you go in thinking, this person I just met today, I need to take their money, it's a fast track to not only burnout, because that's just like a slimy way of going about your day. Every single person you talk to, you're like, I need to take money out of their pocket and put it in mine. But it's also a way to lead to lousy close rates because they can feel that too. Your singular and only job is to help the prospect. So if you think about sales that way, it's one of the most noble professions that you can have. And the way that you help them is by make the decision that is best for themselves in their business, whether that is to work with you or not. You need to seek decisions, not validation. We're just trying to get these people to take action, to hit their goals, because that's what they came to the call for. And I've seen reps with zero sales experience crush it by just focusing on helping the prospect take much needed action without perfecting their pitch and closing it. Obviously, they do those things, going to take them to the next level. But you got to remember the mindset shifts that you are dealing with and the mindset shifts that these prospects are dealing with. Biggest thing is that what's best for them is usually outside of their comfort zone. If they could have fixed this issue themselves, odds are they would have already done it this way, right? And you need to push them, right? That's why we have sales calls in the first place, because they're going to fight like hell to stay inside of their comfort zone. That's where the tension comes in. That's where you can have healthy tension on a sales call. And I've had client Ascension, so I know this for a fact, who are super nervous on the first call, needed convincing, and later they became massive case studies pulling in 6 figures a month. So obviously I've seen what happens when you do push these people to take the right action for themselves, for their business. And then also when you're going through this, when you're approaching this just from like a mental perspective, you have to realize that status matters. Right? People want to work with people who understand their problems better than they do and are similar or higher status. But you just have to be of similar or higher status in your domain. So you may be thinking, okay, Dan, this business owner I'm talking to is a millionaire. I'm just a kid who's starting my business. That doesn't matter. If your domain is YouTube strategy or cold email and you know more about that person, you can understand their issue as to why they can't see results with YouTube or cold email. That's really all you need. And when you're talking to that person who's a millionaire, when you're just getting started out, you can't treat them as your superior. Nobody wants to work with somebody where they feel like it's just charity and like, oh yeah, I'm going to help a kid out. That's just not how the world works, right? Their problems are very much the same as everybody else's. There's very few new problems. There's just varying levels of it. So don't treat their problems as less consequential just because they make more money. It's a losing mindset to start off with. So now you have the right mindset. Then we get into discovery, right? This is the first half of the call leading up to the pitch. And honestly, it's where more than half of the closing happens, right? The goal of discovery is to qualify the prospect, understand their current situation, what they're looking to accomplish, create urgency, and gather ammo that's going to help you close them. So if you're not qualifying the prospect, if you're not understanding their current situation, if you're not understanding their goals, creating urgency, or getting ammo that's useful to help you close them, cut it. Because a lot of people just go through discovery and they have their list of questions and it's not leading anywhere, and they're inconsequential questions, meaning whatever information they gave you, you're kind of just continuing on to the next thing. So if you feel like your discovery is unproductive, just kind of look at this list of things and just say, okay, if it doesn't accomplish one of these, I shouldn't do it at all. All starts with a rapport and agenda. I won't even get into the rapport. Just don't be a weirdo, honestly, and don't play that like inferior status game there. Agenda, just set the expectations up front. If you're not setting the expectation that this should be a productive call, you can't be mad when it's not a productive call, right? And the agenda, I'm not going to write one out, but it should just be setting the tone that, hey, this can be a casual conversation about what you guys are doing, what's working, what's not, what you're looking to accomplish. And if it seems like we can help, then we'll walk you through how we can get started today. And if not, no worries. This is another mindset thing. Like, you two are on the same team. It doesn't need to be like, okay, I'm setting the agenda now and it's going to be me versus you and I'm going to be the hard closer. Like, no, dude, it's like, we're trying to figure out if we can help you out. Let me put my arm around you real quick and just see if we got something that works. If it does, cool. Naturally, I think we should get started on this now. Why are they here? Don't jump to, hey, okay, I set the agenda. Tell me more about your business. Ask them what motivated you to book this call today. If they don't give you a clear answer, what's the ideal outcome for this meeting in your mind? If you've ever been shopping anywhere and the sales guy is like trying to run you through like, oh, we have this thing that just came out and this thing's super cool and this thing's on sale, but you in the back of your mind know exactly what you're looking for, it's super, super fucking annoying, right? You're like, dude, I know why I came. Just let me tell you what I had in mind. And it's what they want. It's also what you should want too. Because a lot of times you ask this one question before diving into like needless business background and they're giving you like more than half the information that you need. So, okay, you understand why they're here. Now this is when you get the background. You really just want to seek to understand their business, how many clients they have, what's their revenue, who's their ideal customer. Honestly, the reason why you do this, even if you kind of know this prospect, like let's say you just stalked them, you did tons of research, or you've had so many sales calls, like you know this person without even meeting them, right? Like I've talked to this type of persona a million times. Doesn't matter. People hate getting advice from people who lack context. So it's not just enough that you know their situation. They have to know that you know their situation. So just make them feel understood, make them feel heard. Sounds dumb, really important. Current efforts, quantifying their current efforts, right? So after we have the background, we're getting into, okay, what are they doing to solve the thing that you help clients with? What have they tried before? What are they currently looking into? And then quantifying those current efforts, what's being produced from those current efforts and like what exactly is being produced. So push for exact numbers, always be wary of ranges. Because a lot of times, let's say we're selling a lead generation offer, you ask them how many calls they're getting. They're like, oh, we get 10 to 15 calls a month. And then if you just frame the question differently, like how many calls did you get in the last 30 days? There's like, oh, well, we got 8 in the last 30 days, but it was weird. It was a slow month and this and that. And it's like, okay, now you're starting to realize just the magnitude. And they're starting to realize at the same time because they just verbalize how important it is that they do fix this issue. Always funny when people are like, yeah, we do 10 to 20K a month. Well, how much you do in the last 30 days? Only 7,500, but we're working on it. It's okay, cool. We want to understand this, not because we're trying to be dicks, but one, we're trying to get them to realize that this is a problem, but also we're just trying to understand where they're at, because once we get point A, that's when we want to go into point B, which is just defining what the clear goals are that they have in mind. What's the one thing that would make this absolutely worth it for them? If they don't have clear goals, lead them to a clear goal. It's not enough that they say, hey, I'm looking to grow the business. I'm looking to get more calls. Well, everybody's looking to grow the business. Everybody's looking for more calls. Everybody's looking for a better website, whatever it may be. If you can't define what that is and have something to anchor on where you know for clarity that, okay, if this was accomplished, this definitely makes it worth it. Not only is it more difficult to understand where the goalposts are, but it's also very difficult to pitch your service as the straightest line from point A to point B, which is what we want to do, because if we do that, we ask them if they see any reason that they wouldn't be able to see those types of results, then we should have that close in the bag. So make sure you're leading them to a clear goal. You're going to have to lead on these calls, whether you like it or not. Then you got to create urgency. And this is the most important part of discovery by far. And also the thing that reps struggle with the most, even after training and going through all my training, going through tons of reps, like this is a thing that consistently needs to be focused on. So after we got their goal, we're going to dive back into a little bit more pain, ask them how long they've been struggling with this issue and how likely are they to hit that goal without addressing these issues. If we focus on those two things, this is going to establish opportunity costs, because them not taking action and doing something is not just them remaining comfortable and doing nothing, because that's what they have been doing up to this point, right? They're going to fight to stay inside of their comfort zone, like I mentioned. But by not doing anything after we just brought up these topics, they're making a decision at the expense of hitting their goals and letting their shitty situation persist. Where whether you're selling B2C or more B2B, like I always do, usually that's enough of an ego hit for somebody to want to move, is if they're basically admitting that they're not going to hit their goals unless they do something. Or they're basically admitting they've been struggling with this thing for 6 months. Hey, what problems has it caused? Well, it's caused this, it's caused that. I can't scale a sales team. I can't do that. Like if these two things are very evident that they will happen if they do not address this issue, whether they work with you or not, which is a big part of what I mentioned in the mindset, like whether they work with us or not, we just want to get them in the mindset of I'm going to take action. I'm finally going to fix this thing. I've had enough. And the reason why we just want them to be in that mindset is because your number one competitor is in action. It's not the other guy who sells a program similar to you. It's not the other agency that does the same exact service. The number one person, the number one thing you will lose deals to is just inaction. Them just sitting on their thumb and doing nothing. We know that if they are going to take action, which we want to basically establish in discovery, and you have a good sales process and you have a good offer, the things that I talk about in my videos, you should like your chances there. Then after all that, you simply just recap their situation, ask if your understanding is fair. Once again, to make them feel heard. So even if you fully understand everything, it's helpful to recap and just make sure that you didn't miss anything that you should have covered, because that's going to be like, okay, yeah, this guy gets it. Once you get it, you basically have permission to pitch. Just quick pause in the video real quick. I'll run through this. If you're an agency owner that's doing under 30K a month, frustrated with low close rates on cold traffic, Client Ascension, fantastic program. It's helped countless businesses like yours hit 40% plus close rates with a proven sales system that I use and teach myself, just like our clients Greg, Jock, Cam, who have all built their businesses to 30K plus a month with being able to close people from cold traffic inside of the program. So click the link below if you want to learn more about Client Ascension and how that can help you scale your AI assisted agency. Now let's get back to the steps. So point 3, pitching. All right, we just finished up discovery. Now we're moving on to the fun stuff. And you got to be able to pitch confidently. And you should be able to pitch confidently after watching this, because you know that it works. And when you pitch, just quick aside before I get into everything, really pitch. Pitch like with your chest. We should know at this point that these guys have a problem that needs fixing. They should want this. They should want to act. And when somebody actually wants something, they're not just sleepwalking through a call. They want to be pitched, right? Like if I was super excited about going to buy a new Ferrari, I would be kind of pissed off if the sales guy was like super lackadaisical, like, I want to hear about all the sick shit that this Ferrari is going to do for me. So the goal of the pitch is to sell this prospect on what you do, tell them exactly how you deliver your service to get them to their goals, which is really important, guys. Mechanism is becoming more important than ever. Like case studies now are still very important, but it's kind of just like it gets you in the door. People also want to know exactly why this is going to work more than the thing that they did previously, and just like how your system is different. So I think that's very important. You also want to build excitement, clarity, and value around getting started with you. Right? Ideally, I'm optimizing everything here for a one-call close. So what I usually do is I just ask them, hey, do you mind if I share some thoughts directly after that transition? I've never been told no at this point. But then I'm just sharing my thoughts and explaining my perspective to basically establish credibility, break limiting beliefs, basically get them to see me as a thought expert about this specific thing that I'm selling, right? So I just want them to understand how I think about cold email, why most people don't get results with cold email, or how I think about YouTube, and why people seemingly can never stay consistent with YouTube. Whatever problem that you're solving with, I'm not even directly talking to them. I'm not directly selling to them yet. I'm saying like, hey man, I'm curious, does that resonate with you and your experience with cold email or your experience with content inside of the business? Because if they think about this issue in my service, what I do, the same way, if they think about cold email the same way as me, if they think about YouTube the same way as me, if they think about anything the same way as me, of course my service is going to make a lot more sense, because I designed it based on what I think about that service, what I think about what I do. So usually it's just, hey, do you mind if I share some thoughts? Cool, man. Just explain where these thoughts are coming from. Credibility, credibility, credibility. And here's typically why we see businesses struggling with XYZ. They can't do this. They try to do this. They try to do this. This is why a lot of people, just feel like they got burned by agencies, blah, blah, blah. Cool, man. Curious to hear if that makes sense. Does that resonate with you? Your previous experience, whatever it may be. I'm just trying to get them to think along the same lines as me. Now, I'm just introducing my service as basically the service provider that fills that gap, right? So once a line, I'm clarifying that this is the specific problem that we help with, and this is who we help best. And I'm just briefly, like high level, going to explain my system and the positioning so they understand our offer's unique value, right? And this helps them see themselves in my ideal client profile before I go deeper into the logistics. Now, with the logistics here, with this proven delivery system that we have, this is usually where you have like your 3-pillar, your 4-step process that delivers results. This is where we're talking about like actual mechanism to get these guys results, but you got to keep it simple. You got to keep it structured. Definitely support this with visuals at this point so they can clearly see how this creates the outcome that they want, right? So now we've gone from like a little bit more abstract to very tangible with the conversation here. Also important that we're going to want to basically just check in with these guys, do trial closes throughout the pitch, and just like sell them on the next steps, not the entire journey, right? Like focus, if you have like a 30 or 90 day time to value, like focus on those small logical steps that seem like no brainers, things that they should be doing right now that they don't have the time to do. Show them the roadmap, show them the quick wins along the way that lead to that big like ultimate win that they're looking for. Because those huge transformations work really well in marketing. They don't work as well in sales, right? Like me, if I was selling a weight loss offer and said, hey, I've helped tons of people go from 350 pounds to 200 pounds, like, yeah, they can get somebody on the call. But if I'm just explaining it as something where it's that easy. Hey, you just start working with me and you're just going to shed that weight. People aren't going to believe it. This is something they've struggled to accomplish for years, right? They got to understand how they're going to start tracking their food, what the additional workout plan looks like for somebody who hasn't worked out in a long time, which hopefully doesn't look like me. And they got to be able to see like, okay, how am I going to basically take that first step forward? This is another thing where I would definitely support this with a visual of a roadmap or something like that. Then we're going to want to make sure that they're clear on the process. Right. So before getting into the closing part, just confirm they understand the process, how it applies to them personally. Confused prospects don't buy. So just invite any questions about the process specifically, even the dumb questions. And I say dumb because they may seem really simple to us, but time and time again, I've seen that people just get held up on these small questions. Like, how does this integrate with my CRM? Or if I'm doing like a content offer, like, hey, what type of mic do I use or camera? Like, allow space for that just to get it out of the way so it doesn't manifest on or off the call as like, I need to think about it. I need to write down my questions, or this was a lot. I just need to digest this, right? Because they may believe that your offer works, but they need to be able to believe and visualize how it's going to work for them exactly before moving forward. So once again, I can make a whole video on this. This is all like super high level stuff, but share the expert perspective, establish, the need of the market and kind of how you help them exactly, present your delivery system, sell the next step, not the entire journey. Make sure, and this is basically more, I should have just put this as like, have some sort of roadmap where they can see what that initial win looks like, and then ensure process clarity before moving on. Another quick call to action. This is pretty much going to apply to everybody here who's in sales. I got a full guide for you guys on how to skyrocket your close rate. And it's going to dive deeper into basically every tactic that I'm sharing today with discovery, objection handling, follow-up strategies, basically everything I've used to consistently close over 50% here. And just, click the link below if you want to grab this for free, transform your sales game. Super valuable, 100% for free. Check it out. Now, for the last part, the fun part, closing and objection handling. And I'm going to slow down at this part of the video because that's exactly what you should be doing at this part in the call. Don't overcomplicate it. Show them value. Make sure they're sold on it. Close. And when you're selling a B2B offer, people are going to buy because they believe that it'll make them more money. So you need to be able to make a strong argument to be able to showcase this. Probably the easiest way to do this is with an ROI calculator or with quantifiable case studies or with value stacking. I made a full video on this, so I'd recommend checking that out. I believe it was the second video that I put out, just how to close more deals using ROI-based closing logic. Super straightforward, but also very in-depth. Now, after you've done that, after you showed them value, if they think there's any reason that they wouldn't be able to see the same value that your average client is seeing, or the same value that this type of case study saw, or the same value that your ROI calculator is projecting, after they say, no, I think I'll get those results. Obviously, if they have an objection, just handle that right off the bat. But if they are confident, there's not much else to do other than drop the price, shut up. I'm not a big fan of staying silent forever. I think people who do that are a little bit too comfortable in silence to the point where the person just gets kind of weirded out and just asks off the call. If there is a bit of silence there, I typically just ask them, hey, does that align with what you were looking to invest to achieve X, Y, Z? I like that better as opposed to like, how are you feeling about that? Because it doesn't really matter how they feel about it. Is that what they can invest to get to that goal? And obviously if they're like, well, I don't know if it would get me to that goal, or some hesitancy comes up, there's going to be an objection, we can go from there. But drop the price. If nothing else, person just staying silent or like, yep, makes sense. Lay out the next steps. Hey, so what would typically happen here is you're going to process the investment with me. After that goes through, I'll send you over an onboarding agreement. Once you fill that out, you'll get a link automatically that gives you that access to Slack, onboarding form, onboarding call, whatever those next steps are. And then just ask for the sale. A lot of people will ask me, hey, Dan, what's your closing line that you use? I'm like, what do you even mean? I just logically check these boxes throughout the call. And then I just ask if they're ready to get started. There's no magical line. It's not Wolf of Wall Street where you're like, we're not beating our chest. Like, it's fun to do that shit off the call. Like, we have a culture where we do that type of stuff. But on the call, I just want to be slow, measured, cool, calm, collected. I'm just asking it with the tonality and with the casualness that, yeah, dude, ready to get started on this now? Because that's typically what people do at this point. That's the energy that I'm getting off. Now, if they object, even though I asked it as if everybody does this, I will not be surprised at all, because I know that most people will have objections. Not saying every person will, but the majority of them, especially through cold traffic, will. So I don't want to, now I don't want to speed up and kind of scatter for the perfect answer or rebuttal. It's as simple as remembering a real framework as opposed to trying to remember these canned responses that don't work in the first place. And the framework that I use is called the XYZ aside method. And the reason why it works really well is because the two most common pitfalls when somebody is objection handling is just not sniffing out the smoke screen and failing to isolate the objection. Now, the reason why just setting whatever they objected to aside is important, because if somebody says, hey, I gotta think about it, or I gotta talk to my partner. Hey, your partner's opinion aside, and I'll talk to you about like how to actually dress it up a little bit nicer, but your partner's opinion aside, do you actually think this is gonna get you guys the results that you were looking for? So now I'm isolating and making sure that the partner is the real problem. Because if I sense any uncertainty or hesitancy around that question, do you actually think this is gonna get you results? What's the real issue? Is it their partner or the fact that they don't think this is going to work? It's the fact that they don't think this is going to work. That's going to be categorized in fear or uncertainty, which obviously I'm going to get into how to handle that specifically. Or if it's money, hey man, totally get you. Let's pretend this is free. Just finances aside for a second. Do you actually think this is going to work? You guys can see the pattern that's emerging, right? Because I want to make sure that it's not just a smoke screen. Like, they do actually think this is going to work. This is a real issue, and it allows me to isolate this. And they throw multiple objections at me at once. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to piece by piece, just one by one, put one to the side so I can attack one specifically, because it is almost impossible to solve multiple objections at once. So we need to make sure that they are real objections, that otherwise they do actually think this is going to work and get them out of their shitty situation and to their goals. And then we need to tackle them one by one, right? The XYZ aside method is really helpful for doing that. And there's really only 4 real objections. Every objection is going to fall into one of these 4 categories. It's going to be partner, it's going to be money, it's going to be fear or uncertainty, and it's going to be timing. If it's not one of these, it's usually a smokescreen. Like, I need to think about it is not an objection. It's just a smokescreen. Got another in-depth training for you. I believe that was 2 videos ago. Yeah, so check that out, right? So for ROI-based closing logic, got a great training on it. Same thing with the I need to think about it, what to do. Absolutely don't panic. Perfectly normal. Just understand why you're getting those in the first place and what to do next to successfully push past that smoke screen and actually isolate the real objection, which is going to be some version of one of these 4. So with the partner objection specifically, you're going to want to, empathize with them. Nobody likes to feel unreasonable. And then you're going to want to basically associate them with other people that have moved forward and just ask them a simple question by putting this aside, right? What that would look like. Hey man, I totally get it. I've got business partners myself. A lot of our clients have business partners too. That said, I am curious, like, Jim's opinion aside, do you think this is going to help you guys get to where you need to go, or get you guys to 50K a month, or get you guys to those 30 calls a month that you were looking for? If not, none of that matters. We need to handle why this guy doesn't think it's going to work, right? Now, if he is confident that it is going to work, and you got to just train that muscle of getting better at calling out bullshit, or just being able to, call out hesitancy, uncertainty. Like, if he's like, yeah, I think it could kind of work, right? Like, nobody responds that way when they're actually sold on something, right? So you just got to break that 4th wall, call it out, understand how to do that. I'll get back into that in a little bit. But, okay, awesome. So I know that you run lead generation here. If you're 100% sold on the fact that this will work for those reasons you just mentioned, I'm curious, what do you think Jim might have an issue with here? Or why do you think Jim might not want to do this? Now, a couple things are going to happen here. Maybe there is no reason that Jim wouldn't want to do this, and he just has to get a sign off. Maybe this guy has an objection that he's too afraid to say, so he's just going to displace it on Jim. Or maybe Jim would actually have an objection. Either way, cool. Like, if it's just a matter of sign off and permission, we can see if we can get that done on the call, or we can compress that follow-up timeline as much as humanly possible, ideally the same day, because time kills deals. But if it's 1 or 2, this guy has an objection that he's too afraid to voice, or his partner would actually have an objection, it's helpful to solve, right? So solve, push past, isolate, don't put up with smoke screens, be good at calling out uncertainty, move on to the next thing. Money objection, very similar. Somebody say, dude, I don't know if I just got to check my finances. Okay, no worries, dude. 100% understand. Wouldn't want to put somebody in a situation where, they're incurring financial hardship by doing this. It's not how we roll. I am curious though, just money aside, let's pretend this is free for a minute. Is this something that you guys do actually think could help you with this issue that you've been struggling with for a while? Whatever that is, right? Obviously, I'm just using like boilerplate things, like tailor it to whatever they're dealing with. Yeah, I am, Dan. This sounds like exactly what we need. Okay, cool. Well, if that's the case, and you are confident that can help you fix this issue that you've been dealing with for a while, do you mind just having like an open, honest conversation about your finances? Now I have permission to go there. I want to make a whole video on permission-based sales, but once they say yes, okay, cool. Now we can ask like the very straightforward, to the point thing, right? Okay, cool. With you guys right now, how much money do you have to invest into this specifically? Maybe you have a payment plan that can work out for them. Maybe that you can understand like, okay, they only have this right now to invest in the marketing, but they're spending money on all of this other dumb shit. And we can kind of hash that out and realize that like, okay, let's not let the sunk cost fallacy get to us. We should divert this budget to here. But like, I need to figure out if this is actually an objection. So before I get into the veiled, like, I don't know if I can afford it, I got to check my budget. Like, of course, make sure that this works for them, and then ask permission to have an honest conversation about their finances, and then just go into logistically if you guys can work this out. Timing objection. Prospects like, maybe next quarter, maybe next year. Just not right now. First off, like, test your belief like I'm doing with everything else. Hey, 100% makes sense. Understanding you guys are busy and got a bunch of priorities. Timing aside though, like let's flash forward and say we are at the start of next quarter. Is this something you're 100% confident in that, it's absolutely going to get you guys to that goal of 50K a month? Now, if it's yes, right, and I've actually isolated timing as the issue, then I'm just going to do something very simple. I'm going to explain my timeline versus theirs, meaning our timeline to actually get these guys the results that they're looking for, and their timeline that they talked about in discovery. Ideally, I did a good job and created some urgency earlier on, and why delaying this until that timeline is going to cost them progress, right? So for example, if I'm selling like a lead generation offer, it takes 2 months to get up to the point where it's producing calls specifically. I just asked them, okay, cool. So if that's the case, this is definitely something you guys want to do. I'm curious, you mentioned these goals that you want to hit by the end of the year. We're sitting at October 30th right now. Are you looking to get calls before the end of the year, ideally, to help you guys hit that goal? Or are you guys just comfortable kind of just getting started and, probably getting calls, mid-February at that point? No, I mean, we want to get calls at the end of the year. So like, that's why we want to start at the end of the year. Okay, cool. Well, maybe I didn't explain it correctly. That's totally on me. So my apologies for that, man. This is just a technique called falling on your sword. We're like, oh dude, that's on me. Whatever. Like, you don't want to get in an argument, right? It's very common that sales reps will win an argument and lose a sale. Oh, so that's totally on me, dude. I apologize. Maybe I didn't explain the actual, the process as well, but it's a 2-week ramp up to actually get any campaigns launched. From there, it takes 10 days to ramp to full volume. Depends on what your sales cycle looks like, but there's typically a little bit of back and forth via email. And then if you're closing people in a week, typically through organic, it's usually going to take about double that amount of time to close somebody from cold. So if that's the case, if we do want to be closing people before the end of the year, it's something we'd want to get started on now, right? It's not a requirement, but just bringing this up because you mentioned those year-end goals that you had in mind that you were looking for help with. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. So now we want to basically understand, hey, you can get started whenever you want, but this is kind of the timeline you shared. And if they're like, yeah, that makes sense, then we essentially have a question there at the end, which is very important, which is, hey, so is this just not as much of a priority as you thought it was coming into the call? Or is there something I'm missing, right? Now we can dive in and maybe another objection pops up and it really is just fear and uncertainty, or maybe it is money, but cool. Like we've isolated, we've sniffed it out. We made sure it's not a smoke screen, or maybe it is. We've isolated objection. We've kind of pushed past the bullshit and cut to the truth there. Now with fear and uncertainty, the toughest part about like handling the fear and uncertainty objections is simply just getting used to calling it out. When you're used to doing that consistently, it's really not that difficult. And you don't have to be an asshole in order to do this. Like everybody kind of communicates in a different way. I tend to use humor a lot to like diffuse situations where people are getting all nervous and flustered. And I'll just be like, hey dude, honestly, it's not an issue if it's not something that you think would work. And it sounds like, you're not 100% certain. And I'm the type of guy that also likes to, be 100% of the way there before I do anything. So if you're not, no worries. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, and somebody's going to pause a little bit, maybe they'll come in with a question, whatever. Like, I did a poor job there because you always want to finish with a question to keep driving the conversations. It's why in like those lawyer movies, they're like, I'm the one who's asking the questions here, because that's typically the person that's in control. But uncertainty and fear, it's kind of like this wishy-washy qualitative thing. So if you do want to quantify their confidence, you can always use a temp check, 1 out of 10. Now, it's very important that you don't just say like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you want to do this? It's dumb. You need to have like the almost like exaggerated disparity between the two, for lack of a better term, and say, hey man, so just help me understand where you're at. Let's say 1 is like, this guy Dan sucks. I want to get off this call. I absolutely don't think his services are for me. And 10 being like, Dude, hell yeah. This is exactly what we need to get to that set goal. Where would you say you're at? Oh, I'm at a 7. I'm at a 8. I'm at a 6. People always say kind of like 6, 7, 8, right? So, hey, cool. It's not a 0. I guess, why are you that high? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Like they're going to start to sell themselves a little bit on the positive aspects of what you guys do. And then you can just simply ask like, okay, cool. Like I agree. Or maybe you add in a little bit of nuance to what they just said. So you're not kind of just like yes manning and like being like, oh my God, thank you. He praised me. Right. Like praise, compliments, very, very common form of deflection towards the end of the call. Like, okay, cool. So with all that being said though, I guess what are like the key things that are missing that's keeping you back from being a 10 here? And now it's oftentimes going to be something where they bring it up like, hey, I just don't know if I'm the type of person that can get results with a program like this, or if your type of service works with this type of business, right? Cool. Now we've gotten it isolated a little bit more. It went from like this vague, like fear, like self-limiting beliefs or uncertainty. I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, to them giving us the reason why that they don't think it's going to work or that they're a little bit fearful heading into this, which great. We isolated it. Now we can tackle that thing specifically, right? Now you want to understand, okay, let's kind of get into this. Let's push past a little bit. Like, is it more about the value here, or is it just like the number that's almost like fishing for a budget objection? If it's price, show that the inaction there is going to get them stuck, right? So like the cost of them not doing anything is actually a lot more expensive than them investing in your service. If you can get them thinking in that mindset, that's obviously super helpful. If it's value, of course, you got work to do. They just don't think your offer is that good. If it's fear, you can acknowledge that fear, but obviously, make them see that, hey, dude, nerves aren't a bad thing. Shows they give a shit. But neither is making a decision quickly when you feel like all the boxes are logically checked. So just kind of circle back on that one more time for you, man. Like, you do think that this is going to help you for A, B, C reasons? Cool. So, and then you can get into questioning their decision-making process a little bit, which I go into a lot, and that's I need to think about a video. So hopefully this is all good stuff, guys. But just keep like pushing past the bullshit, calling out uncertainty, pushing past the smoke screen, keep isolating those objections, and then obviously just work on getting better at handling that for your specific offer. But with basically any objection that I'm throwing, I'm using this methodology and this framework as opposed to like one specific canned response. And towards the end of the call, when you are closing, make sure you always ask for the sale, and then don't overcomplicate this. We want to be the more cool, calm, collected party at this part of the call. And it's almost never the fancy lines that really move the needle for your sales process. It's just being as plain and simple with your questions and very direct with your questions to get to the truth. And you got to realize, like, you can't just 100% disagree with somebody if they don't think that this is going to work right off the bat. You need to figure out why, maybe correct misconceptions. But like, all we're trying to do here, and obviously like if there's like, hey, I don't know if this is for me or whatever, you can get into the opportunity cost. What if they do nothing? What's their alternative? All I'm trying to do is get them to take action to fix their problem. I don't care if they buy my service. But as you can see, going back to the mindset leads all the way down to the end of the call. When I carry out the call that way, it leads to very good closing rates. So we can make it more in-depth training about objection handling, but hopefully this stuff is all super valuable just to get you guys out of here. I know that I need to go to bed at this point. I've literally used this to hit over 50% close rates from cold traffic myself. And my clients at Client Ascension are scaling to 50K, 100K a month with these exact tactics. So check out some of my previous videos I mentioned earlier, especially when it comes to closing, using ROI-based closing logics, and then just the other one on how to understand and how to handle that I need to think about it objection. But let's crush it, guys. Appreciate you if you stay till the end, especially hit that subscribe button and yeah, click the link. Hopefully an editor puts it somewhere on the screen. Appreciate y'all.